Welcome back, friends, to Eat, Read, Sleep, where we get together to vibe with books. I'm Kalina.
And I'm Tapish.
And this is a channel where we summarize books to save you time and have discussions to elevate our minds. And this week, we are going to be discussing a book called Rebel Without a Crew.
Yes. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. So this is a book that I read.
Yes.
And I fell in love with it. I think it's a great book. It's written by Robert Rodriguez, who's a legendary director. He's directed movies like From Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado, Sin City, and then one of my personal favorites, which I know not people agree with, Machete, which if you've ever seen it, is like a silly, all-out combat kind of movie.
I have not.
It's so good with them.
So this is unique because typically we read the same book and then we get together to discuss them. But this time, Tapas read this one.
Yep.
You've been talking about it nonstop. I've been really excited about it because I actually have seen a change in you since you've started reading this book and kind of implementing a lot from this book. And it's a memoir, right? Is that what it is? Not necessarily like a self-help, but you've been able to pull out a lot from it. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this and share with it. So listeners, watchers, viewers, I'm on your side today. We're on this side and we're gonna learn from you, T. So this is Rebel Without a Crew, or How a 23-year-old filmmaker with $7,000 became a Hollywood player. Robert Rodriguez.
Yes. So the way the book is written now is pretty much around like a journalistic entry. So he kind of walks you through how he created one of his first major films. But before we do go into the book, I do want to make sure we do talk about our drinks part of the segment.
Drinks and discussion, of course.
I'm having just plain old iced coffee. As you know, a lot of creative people need coffee to stay awake to do their work. So I definitely need that today.
Yes, and I'm still sticking with my Rise matcha mushroom latte. Which I absolutely love, you guys. Yes, I do recommend it.
Yeah.
It's really good, especially I know you were talking about some gut health and all of that. I just love this so much.
Yeah, I gotta try the coffee because I'm more of a coffee guy. So I definitely want to try the coffee version of that. But next time for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's definitely get into the book. So the book is pretty much about how he set out to create a film. His budget was only $7,000 and he had no crew, hence the title. But the cool thing is he set out the film to make the film pretty much as a throwaway. He's like, I just need to get started. I need to make a film so I can just start my journey as a filmmaker. And like, I only have $7,000. I don't have much money, and I don't expect this movie to be like super hit. All I'm hoping for is I make the movie. I possibly can sell it to like the Hispanic audiences in the U.S. and make a pure Hispanic film, and then just sell for $14,000, walk away, double my money, and walk away with it, and then continue to build from there. And that was his idea. Okay. And the cool thing is, he kind of walks you through his journey about how he did it. Okay. How did he even come up with the $7,000? He actually, one of the cool things that I saw, and you can tell this is how passionate he was about making this film and by just wanting to bring out his creative vision. Was he did a 1 month long study. He was in a scientific study. And he's like, okay, and pretty much he was just donating his blood every single day. He's like a lab rat for a month. And he said, this would be good because I'll make $3,000 that month. And I can also use that time to make my script for my film.
Oh, okay. So like, as he's sitting there donating blood, he's coming up with...
And he's going through a lot of emotion because it's not an easy scientific study. There's a lot of, stuff around it. But you can just tell he's like, I need this money because I need to make this film. Okay. So that's how he came with the most of the money pretty much to there. So
very unique,
right? I never knew about that part. I had followed his journey a little bit. I've seen a lot of his videos online. He's very much one of those very unique. I would say like not your traditional directors. Right. He's very vulgar when he speaks. He's very honest, which not a lot of directors are nowadays. I thought that was his personality. Then as I read the book, I was like, oh, he actually went through a lot. And his budget was also very limited because he didn't have a lot of money. So he also had to make sure this film was going to make money because he had to pay mortgages. And
so $7,000 was inclusive of everything. Equipment, actors, paying, costume, all of that props set.
So if lucky for him, one of his best friends was an amateur actor. So he wasn't necessarily known at the time. He just he wanted to act in a film. So he's like, okay, come in my film. And then he also didn't have a crew. So he pretty much was the light guy. He was a camera person. He was a
Sounds like
stunt
you with
coordinator.
our productions.
He was this one man army.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to see. Then after he got done, he's also the editor because he can't afford a fancy
So
production.
how long did it take for him to make this first movie of his?
It took, I think it was about 6 months. 6
Okay,
months. Yeah.
not too long.
6 months in terms of, sorry,
Relatively,
to
I
film
guess.
it was around 3 to 4 months, and then to actually get it into the hands of producers and Hollywood executives, it was about 6 months.
Okay. So his initial mindset for this movie, you mentioned earlier, was that it's kind of like a throwaway
Yeah.
project. He just wanted to do something just to put something out there.
Right.
So was his idea then, after I do this, then I can actually do something that is
Yes.
really good,
Yeah.
based on hoping that he would get 14,000, then he can make something a little bit better off
Exactly.
of that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, because I feel like a lot of people who set out to do something new,
Mhm.
they want to do something that is perfect,
Mhm.
right? They need to have A, B, C, D, everything lined up perfectly before
Yep.
they can even have the, I want to say guts, but more of the gumption to actually like go out and do it,
Mhm.
because it is a scary thing.
It is.
You're putting a lot on the line, and then you're putting yourself and your brand out there, knowing that it's not actually the best quality, but you're just going to do it.
What I also appreciate about it is that his vision for it was not big blockbuster, which I think a lot of people fall into that. It's like, oh, if I make a film or a movie or a video or a song, it's got to be viral. It's
I
got to
want to be a
go
big hit,
crazy,
the next big
And
thing.
people don't start because of that,
Yeah.
right? It's a lot of pressure to put on yourself.
Yeah.
And so he said, I want to just make this film, and I just want to get it, and I want to make a good film to show what I can do, and that's all.
Okay, so
And
I want to take a moment here to stop on that, because I think that's a really big lesson that both you and I have learned
Mhm.
as we started our journey through Eat, Read, Sleep, and then also through opening up our company, Lions Latitude, is that, where we came from before, the mentality was like it had to be perfect.
Yep.
Like if you don't know everything yet, if you're not the subject matter expert of what you're going to do, then you're not going to be ready to take that step. And it was you who really helped me with that quote, perfection is the enemy of, is that what it is? Like perfection is the enemy of good, or something,
Mhm.
where like you shouldn't aim for perfection. Just
Right.
do something, just put something out. And this is something that I wish a lot of people in the world would feel comfortable with doing, because we are our own limits. There's
Mhm.
so much that we could bring into the world just by trial and error, but a lot of people don't do that because they limit themselves. They're scared.
I read this book, and I'm finishing up Creative Act, and it just kind of continues to bring me back to the point that everyone's creative. Like
Yes.
it's and this book is not just about people who want to make movies or films. It's about any artist, writer, and everybody is creative in their own right. We had a colleague one time, right, in our old job where you could tell she's very creative, and we were in a leadership role. But she was able to bring her leadership, her creativity to the leadership role. Like she would make amazing PowerPoint slides. She would make these amazing brochures to help our teams. Like you can tell, like she had a passion to lead people, and that
Mhm.
was how she was outletting her creativity.
Yeah.
You don't have to be necessarily a musician or something like that in order to be called a creative person. Everybody
Yeah.
has their own way of doing creativity.
It's your passion. Like when
Yeah,
you're saying it, the word creativity, to me, it's not necessarily you have to be creative in the normal way that we know of, like making
exactly.
something like movie
Yep.
or music or art, but it's whatever you're passionate about, what you want to do, what your heart is like telling you to do every day. I wish I could do this.
Yes.
If I didn't have to work, this is what I would be doing.
Right.
That's your creative side. That's your passionate side, doing what you want to do.
That was his vision as well. He just wanted to present it out there. And once he made the film, he took it to one of the local Spanish movie executives here in LA, and the guy's like, this is a really good film. Like, this is amazing work you did." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, this is amazing. Like, you should go to Miramax. You should go to Lionsgate. You should show these to other people." And it's like, okay, and they're like, but if you want to sell it to me, I'll give it for 10K. Like that's my offer for you. It's on the
Yeah.
table. And he's like, oh wow, I can make 10K. He actually was gonna just be like, yeah, you know what? There's no way the big wigs are gonna look at my film. So I might just accept this 10K and walk away with it. But he's like, no, forget it. Let's just try it. Let's just see what they say. So he goes to Miramax. They were blown away. They're like, what? You made this? Like, what was your
How did
budget?
he get his foot in the door? Because I feel like
He was
that's kind of
persistent. Like
okay.
he was outside the office. I know his name has been dragged through the mud recently, and rightfully so. Harvey Weinstein. He was outside the office, like, I want you to see this film, and it was in Spanish. So granted, is gonna be like, why am I gonna buy this Spanish movie? Because like, I want you to watch this movie. I heard a lot of people are saying it's great. And then once one person saw it, the word just spread everywhere. And so then he started getting calls from Sony, all these other places. And then it just became this big, huge thing. Like he had Columbia. Everybody's asking him, like, hey, you need to sign with us. We'll pay you $150,000 for this movie
Okay.
just for the rights.
So what was it about this movie that made everyone want it? What was different about this?
So-
Because I'm sure all these big studios
Mhm.
get pitched every day a movie or
Yep.
something. So why did he stand out?
So it was beautifully shot, and he used a camera that was a few generations old. It was not even one of these expensive rigs. He literally used a camera that was just kind of a throwaway, but it was beautifully shot. He actually voice acted a lot of the voices in the film himself. So he would have the person speaking because he couldn't afford a microphone. So he literally was having people lip sync, and then he would have them record their voices into a tape recorder and
Okay.
sync everything together. And then he also had great like stunts. The stunts were out of control, out of the world that people had never seen before. And that's because he literally took over an entire small town in Mexico and just made that a huge set. And he would
Oh.
just like stop traffic and just start shooting a scene really quickly before the cops would get him, and then he would get out of there really quickly. So it was his vision. And
Okay.
you can just tell, like, the people could just tell there's talent here. There's something here that's happening. And that's kind of how he got noticed. And then after that, he sold his he won a bunch of awards at the festival. They said you gotta go to festivals.
So who ultimately ended up buying that
Columbia.
movie? Columbia. And do you remember how much it was sold for?
He sold the right for it for $150,000. They never actually released that in the US. They just
Whoa.
wanted the rights to that.
Okay, so he sold it. He made it for 7,000.
Mhm.
His first offer was 10,
Mhm.
and they were the one that was like, "Well, try shopping around some more."
Yep.
He ended up
$150K.
$150,000. Wow.
And then that's just for the movie. Then they actually bought him, and they hired him as a director.
Okay.
And they said, we want you to create 3 films for us. And so that was going to be another $120K per film. So it pretty much got his foot right into the door at the same time.
Wow.
So like, again, a very inspiring story just from somebody who, like, I don't know, this is gonna be nothing, but I just want to get started.
Yeah.
So
You
that's
just
kind
want
of
to do something, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's why I really appreciate this book a lot. And at the end of it, again, if you are somebody who loves movies and loves film, there's a 10-minute film school at the back of it, which he guarantees that you will learn a lot more than you will ever learn in film school traditionally.
It's written in the
It's in the
book, or
book,
it's
yeah.
a link?
It's actually in
Oh,
the book.
okay.
He had a whole like the section at the end of it, and I would agree. I had a lot more takeaways from reading those pages than I did learning about it online. So
Would that apply mostly just to people who want to be in film
unfortunately,
and
yeah,
editing? Yeah.
that was definitely just geared towards filmmakers. Like,
Okay.
if you want to make film, this is what you're gonna need. But nonetheless, a great read. I summarized the book. I have a summary coming out. I did discuss 3
I'm
things.
looking forward to that.
Yes. And I talked through 3 things that I really, really loved about that I took away from the book that I still hold with me to this day. And I think when you and I have been talking a lot, I've been kind of bringing some of that up. I was like, well, I read this book and I
Yes.
really think like I need to do it this way. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, 3 things are: first one is set the bar low.
Okay.
And then the second one is you have all the tools you need. And third one is protect your creative vision. So those are the 3 things that I took away from the book. Again, there's a lot more themes and things in the book that may apply to you, but I'm a huge believer in, like, kind of what Ryan Holiday says. You read a book, you should just walk away with at least 1 to 3 things that you really love about a book, and that's it. You don't have to memorize a book from page to page. You literally can just walk away and say, I have these 3 things that I'm going to apply to my life, and that's that. Then the book itself has done you a favor.
It's funny you brought up Ryan Holiday, because as you're saying that, my stoic mind, or at least what I know from stoicism, is that when you said set the bar low, for
Mhm.
me that translated to don't have expectations,
Right.
right? And that's kind of like the stoic way, like just kind of go about. And what was the second one?
You have all the tools you need.
Okay.
And then the third one is protect your creative vision.
I like that.
So first one, and I do want to ask you about this: setting the bar low. And I know in our past lives, we definitely had to set the bar high for our team.
Yes.
We're like, great, you made this, metric. I want you to make this one, right?
Yes.
And it is not a very common thing people necessarily think about. But he set the bar low because again, I don't expect this movie to be great.
Mhm.
I just want to make a quick buck out of it, and then I want to just use that money to continue to fuel my passion.
Yeah.
Um, I I also have the same I also unfortunately had the other mindset where, like, if I make a film if I make a video, I'm like, "It's gotta be the best video there is." Like you
Yeah.
said, perfection
Yeah.
is the thief of joy,
Yeah.
and it's like, I gotta as if it's not perfect, I'm not gonna put it out.
Yeah.
And after reading the book, I was just like, now what I do is I literally, if I'm just even editing at the office, I'll just put the camera on and I'll just, like, practice, and, like, we made that one video, Sick,
The sick one,
the
yes.
one I put out,
Which
and
I absolutely loved.
which you love, but
Yeah.
again, that was one I just said, "This is a throwaway." I just
Yeah.
wanna practice something, I just wanna see what it looks like, kinda stretch my creative vision.
You guys, if you have not seen this, we have a video titled Sick, and it's on our YouTube page and our Instagram as well. And it's just a short video. And the topic is so relatable to everyone. Tapas showed it to me. He filmed it while he was sick, and it's great. I think everyone should watch it. It
Yeah.
really does show your creative side and what your potential and what you can do
Uh-huh.
in
But
film. It's great.
thank you, and again, that all came because I read the book and I was like, "I should just practice." You know
Yeah.
what? Like, I need to stop limiting myself and stop having that thought that I need to be at this level whenever I put something out
Yeah.
there. It could just be like, "Okay, just practice," and you never know. So
So as you're saying that, it gets me really thinking, not necessarily set the bar low, because I think sometimes when you hear that, at least for me, I feel like initially it comes off kind of not negative, but
mhm,
very sad.
mhm,
Like you're not
yeah,
reaching for the stars, you
mhm,
know. But another way you can look at it is winning slow with milestones, and
mhm,
just setting milestones and celebrating each step of the way,
right,
and not necessarily having to go to that end result that you're
yeah.
looking for. You're enjoying the journey. You're just doing what you can to the best of your abilities at that time with what you've been given,
Mhm.
and you should be proud of that.
It also reminded me of Atomic Habits, where
Hmm.
he talks about even if it's just a simple habit of like I got up and had breakfast, that's a bar very very low, but he's like that's a check,
I
and the
will
more you
say,
do it, the more you're like okay, I'm in a momentum. This is good. It's good, and it's great for people who like myself just don't want to, just can't get started because
yeah.
I'm in my head a lot, and I'm just like okay, there's no way we're gonna do it. And I tell you a lot of times, you're like, hey, let's make this. I'm like, no, we can't do it. Sorry, it's off the table. And you're like, why? I was like, I don't know how to do that. There's no way. And you're like, but you can try. I'm like, no, no, let's find another way.
So essentially, this book is what I've been telling you. You just didn't want to listen to me.
It's better when
I'm
it
just
comes
kidding.
from Robert Rodriguez's
From
mind, you
someone
know.
much more credible, of
No, no,
course.
no. But so that's kind of like what's helped me, right? I set the bar super low. It's great. Again, it is good to have high expectations for yourself, but if you're somebody who just can't like start,
Yeah.
it's good to just have that like take the first step.
Yeah, I think that concept of having high expectations for
Hmm.
yourself is something that we've kind of grown up with that reach for the stars. And
Yes.
the more that we've been out in this, I don't want to say real world, but like a different world where we kind of are in control of
Hmm.
things, it doesn't feel like that is the right idea to have, right?
Right.
That reach for the stars, that high expectation. It should be kind of like the three takeaways you have, like just do what you can at your disposable with what you have, and be happy with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we are raised with that mindset of reaching for the stars, and I think it's a lot of times it is how you're hardwired, and
Yes.
it's hard to kind of get out of
It's
that.
hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. So I appreciate you reminding me, because I get that way too. I'm like,
Mm.
it has to be
All
perfect.
right.
We have to make this next one the best one.
Right.
And, I think that it is the best one in that moment for what
Mm-hmm.
it could be. And the expectation, the definitions that we create in our minds are always what's going to be limiting us, because we're trying
Hmm.
to control everything instead of just kind of letting it roll naturally. The other thing that I find very interesting with this book, it's called Rebel Without a Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of what you did with this whole segment, right? Like you did the summary of this book all on your own. Typically we do the summaries together, and you wrote the summary, you filmed it even without me. And now we're kind of talking through this. And as you were telling me his story of how he made the movie, the one thing that stood out to me and I kept thinking was, I feel like he was able to put out such a great product that everyone wanted because he did it on his own. He didn't have a second voice to say, what if we did this? Or to kind of not taint, but to have him second guess what he really wanted. He put out what he truly, genuinely wanted. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially like for you and me, you know, when you're in a business where you have another partner you have to consider, or where maybe you're working on your own, but you are considering what other people would think, which I think a lot of people do, right? It's always that, what are people going to say about this? Are people going to like it? Am I going to get the audience's attention? And it's very interesting that he is successful because he gave no F's or care about anyone else. He did what he liked and wanted to do. And that's where, at least for us, I feel like we get really good responses when we do that as well. Like for your movie Sick, your short film Sick, like whenever we do something where we're like, who cares what people want? Like, let's just do it our way. It's so much fun, the process of it. And then seeing the result of it is very cool too.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring that up, because that is the third part that I took away from it was around the fact that, you know, you protect your creative vision. So we'll go into that more, because that was, again, something that I really had to change for myself as well.
Okay.
So second one was you have all the tools you need. And that's something that I will say I have to attribute to you, because you always tell me, like, we have why do you need more things? And I was like,
you guys, it took $7,000 to make this podcast, so please,
she did.
Please watch, like, subscribe.
And, you know, because you always tell me, you're like, and I would ask you, hey, can I get this? Can we get this? And you're like, why? What do you need it for? And I was like, because it'll make it look this great, or it'll help me this way. And, you know, one thing he does say is that, yeah, it's great for you to buy expensive things. You can buy the latest and greatest things you want, but that new camera or that new whatever you buy is not going to make the good product for you. Like, you have to learn how to use it properly. And another thing that really clicked on me in me recently is, I was watching a lot of short films that have won awards in the last couple of years. And I was like, wow, that was a really good film. Like, I wonder how they shot it and all this stuff. And I look at the BTS from the creator that made it, and it's just like, they're using a camera that I bought 10 years ago. And when we started this thing, I was like, this is not going to be good enough. And I sold it, and I bought some more new things.
Interesting.
And I was like, he shot that entire film with that crappy camera. And so it really sparked in me. I was like, wow, I need to just learn how to use the tools. And that's what he did. He learned how to use the tool that he's given. He had a really old cinema camera that he used from a buddy of his that works in production, and they didn't need it. So they're like, here, just go ahead and use it. I don't care. He didn't have editing software, so he used 2 VCRs. And for our young audience, VCR is what we used to watch videos back in the day. But he used 2 VCRs to edit the thing together. And
that just blows my mind that some people may not know what a VCR is. I feel so old.
I mean, one term I heard recently is that's from the late 1900s, right? I was like, that is like, oh my God, that's so long ago. Read the book and you realize he used all these things creatively, and he used what he had around him. I was like, yeah, that's what we have. We have stuff around us already to get us started, to get our creativity going. If you can't afford the nicest, you know, pastel colors, all that kind of stuff, you still have a pencil. Like, there's a lot of things available to you to practice your art and your creativity. You have to just be able to learn it first. And I think what I always struggled with was, I never wanted to learn it. I just expected, hey, I'm going to buy this expensive camera and it's going to make this beautiful film. And it's like, no, it won't, because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So I got to learn.
Do you find that people have that mentality where you need to get the equipment to get started, or you need something, versus identifying the fact that you need to, what you just said right now kind of hit with me, like, take the time to learn it.
Hmm.
Is that just an easy cop out, an excuse, or is it
You mean
something
to just to
different?
buy? Yeah,
Hmm.
it is definitely an easy cop out.
Yeah.
It is. And then I think especially people like myself who watch a lot of YouTube videos and other creators, they review these new latest and greatest cameras. I'm like, oh, I need that
Yeah.
because that can do that, and I don't know how to do that. Whereas when there's those same creators, when you actually look at it, they use the same camera for the last like 6 7 years.
Yeah.
They never changed. They just do it because they get paid to make those reviews, but you don't really need it. So I do agree. I use I'm a good example of somebody who did expect to, if I buy something new, it's gonna make amazing product.
Yeah.
And I definitely have taken a step back now. I'm just like, well, I don't need that lens. Like some of the stuff that we use now, I thought maybe if I just sell it and if I get something nicer, and I was like, why? I can still make great stuff,
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Like I'm getting there.
Yeah, it's definitely that skill set, and this comes along with that same theme that I've been hearing recently. I'm seeing it on Instagram and all of that, where people are saying that we've had a lot of conversations about this. People who say, "Oh, I wish I could do this," or "I wish I was as successful as Elon Musk," or
Mhm.
whatever. But then it's like, do you really? Because if you were, you would have to do all of these things. You'd have
Yes.
to put in all of these hours. You'd have to do all of this stuff. And you don't really want that. You
Right.
just want all the money, or you just want all of the whatever without having to actually put in the work.
Yes.
And that's going to be the difference when you set out to do what it is that you want to do. If you actually want to put in the work, that's your true passion. That is
Right.
your calling right there because you're willing to do it.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're just like, well, let me, if I can't do it, it's because I don't have A, B, C, D.
Right.
It's the excuses that you were talking about. And I'm not saying that you're
No, I
you're
know.
not
Yeah,
like that,
100%.
right? I absolutely know like you spend a ton of time watching the videos, learning and doing all of these things. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people think that it's easier than it
Mhm.
really is.
Yeah. I forgot who said the quote, but it's like you're not gonna wake up one day and just become Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
right? Like Jeff Bezos had to. I mean, I remember there was an interview where I believe he was on Jay Leno's show, and it's just when Amazon was getting started, and and he said, and Jay Leno was making fun of him. He's like, "Hey, your company's been losing money every single year." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, 5 years we haven't made a single profit." And he's like, how are you gonna run that business like that where you're losing money?" He's all like, future. I see the future. I know it's gonna take off, and we're investing into the future. And it's like just it isn't that's gonna be eventually someday it will my vision will come true. And you can just see it. Like he had that like conviction in him that he's like this is gonna work. I can tell it. But anybody else, if you ask them to live those 5 years where you're losing money
Yeah.
constantly, they were like, no, I would never do that. It sounds miserable. And eating ramen every single day, all that kind of stuff. Just living a bare minimum life because you're not making money, people would be like, "No way, I would never do that."
Yeah.
But they do wanna see the successful Jeff Bezos. They wanna be the richest person in the world,
Yeah.
but they won't wanna go through the journey of becoming that
Yeah.
person.
I think it's because of social media and access to news and resources, we
Mhm.
see more of the overnight success
Yes.
stories, and so we believe that that's more possible,
Right.
and that's what happens versus hearing about all there's so many stories out there of people who hustle
Mhm.
and bust their butts off to
Mhm.
get to where they are, and we don't hear that part of it. It's
Yeah.
very rare to have those quick success stories, and then even then, I feel like those quick wins that aren't very sustainable.
Which brings me to the last point, which is, protect your creative vision. So, one of the things that I really, really appreciate about Robert Rodriguez is that he really believes on what his movies should look like. When he was presenting the film to other executives, they're like, why would you shoot it this way? Why did you not do it this way? He was just like, no, like this is what I wanted to do. This is what my vision is. And even the editing, like some of them were like, why would you edit this way? And they're like, and he said, no, this is what I truly believe it should look like. He's very protective of his vision, and because he's not deterred by others' opinion
I
about
love
what it
that so
is,
much.
right? And that's something I mentioned in summary is that it's good to take feedback. I truly believe that feedback is necessary to become a better creative person, but it's also not a good idea to completely abandon your creative vision because you may not see people on the same side as
Yeah.
you, right? Another director that was coming up at the same time as Robert Rodriguez was Quentin Tarantino. They both actually came together at the same time, and they both are very, very unique directors. Like if you've seen Tarantino movies, they're a little out there,
Yeah.
but he's famous for just saying, "This is how I want to do it." When they shot Pulp Fiction, the studio wanted him to bring on Bruce Willis as the main character besides Samuel L. Jackson, but he said, "No, I want John Travolta." And they're like, "What? John Travolta's washed up. He's he's a has been. He's not good anymore." It's like, "No, I made this for John Travolta. If you want Bruce Willis in the film, fine, but he'll have a minor role somewhere else." And at that time, Bruce Willis was just coming off of Die Hard, is very successful,
Yeah.
and Bruce Willis also said, "I want to be in your film. Please put me in your film." He's like, "I got nothing for you. I'm sorry. My film is set because this is what I want it to
Yeah.
be." And of course, as we all know, Pulp Fiction is one of his legendary films of all time. But that's something that I truly believe in. I know I was very much deterred when we would put something out and I may not get the clicks and likes that we were
Yeah.
expecting. And I'm just like, well, I guess that sucked. I don't know what I'm doing. Back to drawing board.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just say, no, like there's something I truly believe this is how it should look like. And I really think this is going to someday, maybe if it's not 1,000 people, but at least 100 people will say, that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
I'm like, that's more than enough for me
Yeah.
because I don't think we need to focus on just the likes.
So have you always had this mindset, or was it this book that brought that to you?
I would say the book brought it much more prevalent to me because
Mhm.
you can just kind of see that he's very like indifferent about what people are saying about his vision.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care. Like
Mhm.
this is how I feel about it. I would admit, in the past I was very much like people would give me feedback like that doesn't look good, that doesn't look great, and I'm like, yeah, but I think this will work, and then I would just be like, no,
But you have to go through that
you
for
have to,
yourself, right? For
yes,
that trial and error.
but you also can't depend on people's
Absolutely.
likes and all that kind of
There
stuff.
is a fine line with that. Like you said, it's very important to listen to feedback
Mhm,
because we are, going back to kind of for agreements and alchemists, we are in our own worlds,
mhm,
right? And we can only see from our own biased point
mhm,
of view. And so everyone has a different lens. And so when you have different perspectives from different lens coming to you, offering these feedback in a constructive way,
mhm,
you can take that and assess it and if you're open to it, see it from that side.
right.
And that can help you, or that can help you stand firm
Mhm,
with your current position. And I
mhm,
think that it's very important. A lot of people feel offended, or they get on this defense when someone comes at them with
right.
a different opinion or a different view. And I asked you, have you always been this way? Because I feel like, for me personally, and a lot of people that I see around me, it's hard to be open to that. It's
Mhm,
it's very easy to listen to the noises and the distractions
mhm,
around you and think about what other people are thinking and to care about what other people
right.
think, right? Like, how do you overcome not caring about what others say around you?
I think it's especially now when we live in a much uh, influential social media culture, right? Like where you get instant feedback on
Mhm.
your stuff, and
Even if
and
you don't want it,
even if you don't
right?
want it,
Yeah.
right? Or people will post a photo and they'll like just keep scrolling and refreshing. How many likes did I get so far? You can, and I know a lot of those kind of people as well. I would say now, if I put something out there, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know what the reception is gonna be. Before when we put like stuff out there, I would like keep clicking like, hey, how many
Mhm.
views did we get? How many
Yeah.
likes did we get? Now I'm just like, I don't even know how we were doing. Like I think we both have transitioned to that where
Yeah.
we're just like we're like, and I would tell you like a week later, like, oh, dude, that one got like 4,000. It did. I was like, yeah, dude, like, isn't that crazy?
I think it's very cool to think about like your sense of control on
Hmm.
something, right? If you put it out to the universe, you let it go and you kind of let the universe do its thing to
Right.
conspire and help you towards your dreams. As in The Alchemist, I think that works so much more wonders,
Hmm.
and you don't have the stress and angst inside of
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
And it feels really good. I know it's hard to not care about what other people think,
Right.
especially in the world that we grow up with. You see it all around you. But if you can figure out how to turn that little switch off and listen more to your own voice in your
Hmm.
head and be proud of it and almost want to be different in a
Hmm.
way, and say yes, people don't like it and that's
Hmm.
what you want to aim towards,
Hmm.
in a nice way though, not to like piss anyone off. But
Right.
I think that could help your creative outlet a lot. Let you just be who you want to be and make the stuff that you want to make to put out into the world. And that's what the world needs.
There's a really good TED talk from Ethan Hawke about the world needs people to create things, and because we are all connected,
Mm-hmm.
but we need people to challenge the status quo. We need people to consistently bring out the best in themselves
Yeah.
and I mean, the TED talk is called "Give Yourself Permission to Be Creative." I think a lot of people struggle with that, and he said the most creative people that we know are kids, because kids don't know if they're
So
doing it right.
true.
They don't know
Yes.
if it's a beautiful picture of a truck or whatever. They're like, I made this. It looks cool to me.
Yeah.
And then that's it, right? And you, as parents, we're like, yeah, that's yeah. But as adults, we'll be like, no, that's not
You
quite
like
exactly what a
critique
truck looks like. Yeah,
everything.
you kind of get in your own head. So I think that's where I've had to kind of step away and say, you know what, like I'm just gonna make things that I think it just looks really cool. And yeah, there are gonna be minor things that I will need to adjust, and that's welcomed feedback. But then there's also things that I'm like, no, this is kind of what I think it should look like. And I think people who are very convicted of that, they do end up making really great products. Like I
Mm-hmm.
get Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, a lot of cool, and people. Picasso made some weird paintings. People would be like, what the heck is he doing? But he knows that this is exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I really taken away, and I'm like, I need to make a stance on myself, because I was so easily deterred away from that. Overall, I thought it was a very cool book. Again, not it's not just for filmmakers. It's just for anybody who wants to see a story unfold about somebody who's wanting to become creative.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of that? What did you think of it so far? Like,
I mean, I loved everything that you shared about it. I think the takeaways are really great, and even though it's a memoir, it does feel like that self-help you can pull
mhm.
out of it, extract, use it in your own personal life. I would be very interested to read this book, and I do like that fact that it's more like a journal
It
entry.
is, yeah,
That's very cool. You
very
can read
candid.
through it, yeah. And did he actually keep a journal that
Mhm.
he reflected? And so this is what he pulled from. I actually had a conversation with a friend this morning about the journey of the process of starting something new
Mhm.
and the idea of journaling along the
Mhm.
way. I know you mentioned that you had did that when we
Mhm.
started what we were doing.
Yeah.
Are you still doing that?
I've been very inconsistent, and I
Yeah.
think when especially after reading the book, I was like, I should journal more, because
Yes.
especially through the last year where we started this new,
Adventure of ours.
adventure
Yeah.
career. I'm sure we would have had really great like insights about what we were feeling at the time, like the times that we felt really great, sometimes that we didn't feel
We're
so great. But
scared.
looking back on
Yeah.
it would have been kind of cool to see that.
Yeah.
But
I think
nonetheless,
moving forward, I definitely want to do that.
yeah,
This has inspired me to do that for sure.
yeah,
Like we got to sit down and journal and put everything out there because I think it's also a really good way for us to like have clarity as well, make space for mental
yeah,
clarity.
agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. So if I gave you 30 seconds on the platform to sell this book to our viewers and our listeners, what would you say?
I would
Go.
say first watch the summary, and
Oh
then
yes.
secondly, I would say it's for anybody who wants to learn to get out of your own way and just create something that you really believe in.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
this book with me and with our audience today. We hope you guys enjoyed this segment of Drinks and Discussion with Eat, Read, Sleep on our book Rebel Without a Crew, written by Robert Rodriguez. So, thank you for spending your time with us today. Be sure to check out the summary of the book that we have. Tapas did this one without a crew. So, it's going to be on our YouTube page. If you liked this segment, help us out, like, subscribe, and comment below. Let us know what you think if you read this book or if you're interested in reading this book. Thank you for spending the afternoon, evening, day, wherever you're at with us. We can't wait to see you soon. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys.